Okay, welcome everyone to our summer seminar series. What we're doing this summer is we're inviting insights from Gator grads. And this is the first seminar in our series, our summer series. And we have a couple of representatives from Lockheed Martin. And I'll introduce them both and then pass it on. So Janet Bashel she joined Lockheed Martin in November of 2018, the day that InSight landed on Mars. And she's a graduate of Michigan State University and has a Bachelor of Science dual degree in social science and political science with an emphasis in human resources. She is the human resource leader with a proven track record in recruiting, consulting, and influencing business leaders in talent acquisition. As a campus relations expert, Janet has mentored many college students through their transition from school to work to find their passion and reach their success goals. Janet's goal is to provide guidance as individuals identify their mission and successfully navigate the search, interview, and selection process to find their place with Lockheed Martin. And let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and introduce Eric as well. Eric Kazmierczak is a project manager and staff to Senior Vice President of the Enterprise Business Transformation Organization at Lockheed Martin Corporation headquarters. He is currently on special assignment supporting the Chief Information Officer in Lockheed Martin's business community response to COVID-19. Previously, he spent 7 years in the Lockheed Martin Aeronautics business area working on the F-35 Lightning II, in numerous roles of increasing responsibility, ranging from flight test engineering to systems engineering and project management. Eric received his BS Aerospace Engineering degree in the fall of 2012 from the University of Florida, go Gators, and his MS of Engineering degree in aerospace with an emphasis in aerospace engineering from Cal Poly Pomona in fall of 2016. And Cal Poly is also a good school in case our local students don't know that. Janet, I will pass it on to you now.
I'm just going to say a quick hello, and then we're going to let Eric dive into it, but very, very excited to be here today. For those who have not met me, I am the representative from our university relations team who gets the honor to come to Gainesville and hopefully help many of you come on board with Lockheed Martin to join the already probably over 1,500 alumni that we have working for us. Some of you hopefully will grow into some of those VP positions that we have and directors and growing your career. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He is going to razzle dazzle you, and then I'll be back later.
First of all, Dr. Carroll, thank you for the introduction. Janet, thanks for being here. University of Florida and Ken Aerospace Department. Really excited to be back to talk a little bit about Lockheed Martin, what we're doing and what you can do to hopefully have a career as interesting and intriguing as mine has been, and even better. With that, I just want to jump right into it. Just a little bit about Lockheed Martin to start off with. Always want to lead with our values, and this is one thing that I really want to just hit on. Lockheed Martin core values are do what's right, respect others, and perform with excellence. Because before I get into talking to you about some of the things you can do at Lockheed Martin, some things you can do for your experience, your careers, the fulfillment you get, one thing I really want to instill with you today is that what your company values reflects with how they treat their people and how they're going to treat you in your career and how you're going to feel satisfied throughout it. And I will talk a little later about how we respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, but these core values are essentially important, and I always want to lead off with that. So for any opportunity you go for, please keep those in mind. A little bit about Lockheed Martin. Again, line of those core values, we're all about the people. So it's a huge corporation, 110,000 employees, over 7,000 international, around 60,000 engineers, scientists, and IT professionals, and a very significant veteran population. As many of you know or imagine, Lockheed Martin does a lot of business with the US government and with our armed services. So we have a very close relationship with our armed services, and we have a lot of them after they retire joining our ranks. Where we are, well, we'll mention 110,000 employees globally. 110,000 employees globally with almost 600 facilities worldwide. But we are grouped in a couple of core areas. We have 4 actual business areas aside from our corporate headquarters, which we'll talk to in a little later. But those are focused on rotary mission systems, or RMS, which is in DC. The Texas area, where I'm in right now, currently in Fort Worth, has the aeronautics headquarters, as well as our missile and fire control headquarters in Grand Prairie, which is Dallas. And then our space systems company is headquartered in Denver, Colorado. But some of the sub-sites here that have thousands of people, and many of them hiring, are Orlando, Florida has 2 huge sites, which you get a lot of people for. Marietta, Georgia has a major site. We have major sites in Sunnyvale, California, and all across the Northeast and the Midwest. There's almost nowhere that you can want to work that Lockheed Martin isn't in that geographic region. And with recent events, there might be nowhere that you'd like to work that Lockheed couldn't support you with. And then just kind of what is the core of Lockheed Martin? So you might have heard Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin gets a lot of press and publication about our aeronautics business unit. It is our largest one by sales, workforce, and revenue. You can see the photo here on the left is the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. That's the program that I've worked on for many years, that I'll talk about in a little bit. Known for their fighters, but do any kind of aircraft and airliners, advanced development, and big into sustainment, which is a growing field now. Moving to the right, missiles and fire control. That picture represents at best a wide range of missiles and weapons, but also really interesting things with energy, fire control, and just advanced systems for your U.S. government partners. Rotary Mission Systems is our newest, recently acquired combined business area. You may have heard of Sikorsky helicopters previously in years past. Several years ago, Lockheed Martin acquired Sikorsky helicopters, and we rolled them into this business areas. So the rotary system is legacy Sikorsky, and mission systems, we just provide a wide range of solutions for our customers, anything from radars to systems that go on naval ships, ground, sub, air, sea. It covers the entire gamut. And then, of course, the last section I didn't read there was the space systems. Any single rover from the United States that's gone to Mars has Lockheed's fingerprints all over it. Basically, any major space exploration has Lockheed over it, from the Space Shuttle series to the next generation Orion, which is going to take astronauts to the moon and beyond. Lockheed Martin is the key manufacturer for those main systems and components. So that was a quick highlight over Lockheed Martin. I want to give you a little personal background about myself. I was born and raised in South Florida, kind of west of Fort Lauderdale. As Bruce mentioned earlier, I went to the University of Florida. You can see a little bit of my remainders. I'm still a huge fan. My wife, which I just married a year and a half ago, also went to the University of Florida. We actually met in middle school, but didn't start dating until a little bit after we graduated. But we go back to a game every single year for the last 5 years. So we'll see what happens this fall, but we're always excited to support the Gator Nation. The photo down here was us in the stadium just last fall. And so that's one of our favorite traditions. I mentioned that Georgia's really an asterisk. That's where I got my internship with Lockheed Martin in Marietta, Georgia. That was I put it there because I was there for 3 months, but it was pivotal in my career, and not just my career, but my entire life. What I was able to do there and the follow-on steps have made such a huge impact in my life, and hopefully we'll talk a little more about internships here later today. After graduating the University of Florida in 2012, I decided to say, what's about as far away as I can get in the United States, and I went over to California to go work at Edwards Air Force Base. Really cool job. I'll talk about that in a second. And then I mentioned me and my wife started dating after we graduated. She was in Florida, I was in California, and we decided that Texas was a nice halfway meeting point, and it happened to be the corporate headquarters for the aeronautics business unit. So we ended up both moving there. We figured it was going to be temporary, and that was almost 5 years ago. So we are enjoying Fort Worth quite a bit. As Dr. Carroll mentioned, my undergrad was from the University of Florida. I graduated in fall 2012. Just listed a couple things here because I want to highlight them later, but I love being involved in the University of Florida. When I was speaking to some folks earlier, the Freshman Leadership Engineering Group, Engineering Ambassadors, tons of engineering orgs. I want to list a few here, but AIAA, SWE, NSBE, SHIP. I'm going to say it now, I'm going to say it again. If you aren't involved, if you aren't being active in this, you're missing out if you're experiencing the University of Florida. and you're missing out on opportunities on how to take the next step after you graduate. These are so critical and instrumental into giving you the experience, the connections, refining the skill sets you need to be successful the rest of your life. So I'm going to say it again, but I'm going to highlight it here. Take advantage of your organizations. They are amazing, and they are frequently mentioned as one of the top reasons why recruiters that I've talked to, and even my colleagues at other companies, select students. It's from their involvement in organizations. And as an asterisk at the bottom there, I did get my master's, Cal Poly Pomona, when I was in California, working full-time with Lockheed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right, so a little bit about Lockheed Martin, what I've been able to do there. Currently, I work in Enterprise Business Transformation Office, which might not mean a lot to you. A more common term is digital transformation, which also may not mean a lot to you, but I'll dive into that shortly here. What I really want to talk about is digital transformation being more than just advancing technology. It's about the processes, the people, and the tools that you can use to transform the way you work and the way we do business. Even more recently, as Dr. Karen mentioned, I'm on a special assignment supporting our business continuity for COVID-19. That has been an interesting response, and I'm fortunate enough to have some pretty good insights to share with you about what Lockheed Martin's doing, how we're reacting, and how we're positioning to move forward, even in a stronger way than we were before. Beforehand, I mentioned I worked on the F-35 program for 7 years with Lockheed Martin at Edwards Air Force Base, California, and in Fort Worth, Texas. I started off my career with Lockheed Martin, going to an Air Force base, working on an off-site. I mean, it wasn't a main Lockheed site, it was a government site. And we were in the middle of testing the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter pictured here. I was able to be part of a lot of really fun and engaging testing, talking about an aerospace engineer graduating from the University of Florida, and then going to be able to test the newest, most advanced fighter plane in existence. It's still in development. If you ever have a chance to get a hands-on experience with the product that you're working with, I cannot encourage it any higher than that. It is amazing to design something. It is amazing to review and approve and analyze something, but to actually be with the product gives you a whole appreciation for the end of that life cycle and how everyone's worked so hard for it. For those who don't know what flight testing is, I'll give you just a very brief overview. If you're familiar with the movie Apollo 13 or Armageddon, where there's a bunch of people in a control room, usually in Houston, and they're all looking at their screens trying to figure out what the problem is. And then there's one person, usually director, who actually talks to astronauts in space. So flight testing is very similar to that. We have a control room full of tons of people. Each of them are experts in their discipline, whether it's the flight controls, the electrical system, the fuel system, the landing gear. And then there's one person that tells the pilot what to do. That person was me in my case, a very engaging job. And my call sign was control, and the pilot's call sign was test. So my job was to control the test that they were going through, and talk about an amazing experience, a lot of hard work, but you really get to understand how you test and develop something and deliver it to our customer. From there, I went to Fort Worth, Texas, and again, to be with my now wife. Changed to weapons integration. You can see the photo here that I displayed shows it's an F-35 firing an AMAX missile. So it is a military plane, so it is equipped with weapons. And one of the most difficult testing we have to do is have a brand new in development, fast moving object going supersonic, pulling up to 9 times the force of gravity, 9 Gs, and then hopefully successfully firing another high speed explosive item. You can see here from the condensation, this is a AF-1, our Air Force One aircraft for F-35, pulling about 6 G, 6 times the force of gravity, going above the speed of sound, and then launching a missile. We do it over the ocean so that we have a safe area for the missile to go splash down on. I helped coordinate that for Fort Worth. Prior to that, I did have my internship in Marietta, and my most recent assignment before transferring to my corporate role was I worked on the same exact project, but in a program management role. So one cool thing I want to talk about the engineering degree is that you can do so many things with it. It is not simply engineering and solving a math problem, which trust me, I love to do. I did my master's, I did a research paper on the Ryan aircraft and astronautics mission to Mars, which is incredibly riveting. If you're ever curious to read it, it's about 40 pages. But the great thing to do is that engineering at the University of Florida teaches you to solve problems. And solving problems is a universal skill set, whether that problem is a math problem, trying to solve for what my angle of attack should be, trying to solve for my trajectory on a spacecraft to Mars, or trying to solve cost, technical, and schedule, which is what program managers tend to do, is trying to figure out how can I make this whole plan work on schedule, in the budget I have, and to meet the quality that I need. So engineering teaches you a methodology and a skill set, and you have these hard facts and concepts you keep aware of, but the problem solving aspect is probably the most important part that I want you to stick with you, because that's what's going to take you the furthest. In my case, I did some mathematical aspects in my career, but it was largely on the problem solving methodology more than the mathematical methodology. I know one thing we want to talk about when I was talking to Dr. Banks prior to coming over here, again, thank you for this opportunity, was the COVID pandemic's on everyone's mind. So a quick note on how it's affected me, the work that my team does, and we'll talk a little bit how it's affecting our future and our future with recruiting. So right now we're doing a Zoom call. I imagine most of you significantly increase the number of Zoom calls and other video calls or YouTube presentations that you've done since before the pandemic. My team was based out of DC, Washington, DC, about 11 Fort Worth. So I was already working remotely, but I was flying to DC about every other week because we had this idea and this culture that we were changing, but that a lot of work gets done in person. So one of the really interesting COVID-19 has done for us is realize that the work still needs to get done. And that's one of the amazing things with Lockheed Martin is the work we do is critical. It is essential. So unlike many other industries, which unfortunately, for the safety of their workforce, had to stop and shut down, Lockheed Martin has never stopped working since the pandemic this entire time. We've had continuous operations for essentially all of our employees, both on-site and remotely, because the work we do is so critical to our customer. And that's just something that to really keep in mind about aligning yourself to your values and the mission that your company supports. And aside from the personal belief that it has that I can continue to work and support my team, but also that the work we do is so critical that the US government doesn't give us the option to stop. The team dynamic I want to touch on here, we were part of the digital transformation team. We were already investigating ways to make more widespread this virtual remote work, but talk about COVID-19 putting acceleration on our plans. I mean, we were like, we can do this rollout over the next year. We want to get people to buy in, to make sure they're comfortable with it, because we need to be cognizant that we have a very diverse employee base, both in terms of comfortable with technology, age, and just practices that they spent their whole career doing. So we didn't want to force anything on it. We don't believe in that Lockheed Martin. We want to get groundswell and kind of share the benefits of tools. But as we were forced to maintain and protect the safety and well-being of our population, to bring, we had about a few thousand folks working remotely, and we brought it up to about 60,000 essentially overnight. In early March, we just transitioned over half our workforce to work remotely in order to maintain operations and to protect our people, both the ones that working remotely so they wouldn't have to come to work, but also for the ones that had to go to work to make sure there was less people, a less chance of exposure, and keep them safe and healthy, because that is our #1 commitment, our #1 priority throughout this entire experience. Last thing I want to touch on here is that I alluded to it earlier, but how we work has really been an interesting perspective shift, because I want to highlight the picture here on the left that I put of this mother on her computer with a baby. 4 months ago, it would have been seen as largely unprofessional outside of an emergency to be having your kid on a call while working in the middle of the day, or I've had coworkers where their kids run in the background screaming, or their dogs barking. And the reality is that right now we're not in a normal time, and a non-normal time requires a non-normal response. And a non-normal response is that we are in a crisis. We do have essential jobs and roles we have to do, but the level of empathy and understanding that the corporation has come out with, it says, hey, look, we support you. We're going to be flexible. If you need to work from home, if you have to work with a kid in your hand, if you have to work in the mornings or in the evenings, however you need to work to get your job done and to deliver to our customers, because we have a commitment to them, we're going to support and figure that out for you. And if you can't work for a little while, because you need to figure things out, we're going to support with that too. We're going to work with your leader and your HR partner. So really push the definitions of how we used to work. Teams that used to check in with their manager every single day in a morning meeting and a status in the afternoon, now going completely virtual, and helping coach those leadership teams into enabling the remote teams while still keeping the connection has been a really great benefit of this whole process. And I say that knowing that the COVID-19 pandemic is an unmitigated tragedy, the loss of life and economic impact. But one thing that we're trying to do is that we can't change that portion of it, but we can change how we react to it and how we can control going forward. So that's what Lockheed Martin's been focusing on, not only with our workforce, but in our community. We've progressed payments of over $500 million to our suppliers through our supply chain, and several $1 million of donations. And we've provided company assets to get masks and other medical equipment all across the US to support frontline workers, because the commitment to our employees and our customer is unwavering. And it goes back to those core values that it makes you really excited to work for a company that is very firmly guided by those core values. I want to talk a little bit here, watch some time, about what my actual new job is that I've been doing for the last 6 to 7 months, which focuses on digital transformation and the new ways of working. So I mentioned beforehand that the team I was working on was already partially remote. We had my senior vice president that I worked for was in DC, one vice president was in Denver, I was in Fort Worth, and one of the directors that I worked with had 7 direct reports in 7 different states, which was previously unheard of at Lockheed Martin, just because so much of the work that we do tends to require in person, but we were developing these tools to change that. But the big thing is that it's not just the tools in that bottom right corner of that diagram. We found, research has shown, that if you don't invest the same amount of money in tools, in processes, and people, your tool adoption will fail. Your engineering teams will come out with the coolest tools, the best technology, the most revolutionizing ways to design, to manufacture, to connect, to encrypt data. But if you don't address the processes and the people, those tools will not be adopted. Having that human-centered approach, that employee or that customer-centered approach is so critical to actually having digital transformation that takes form. The second part is that this quote on the bottom is one of my favorites. When digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning to a butterfly. When it's done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. So that's kind of to highlight the difference between digital optimization and digital transformation. So automation is great. We got a lot of teams working on it. We want to reduce the amount of tasks that can be automated, that machine learning, that artificial intelligence can do. So that way we can free up the time for our employees to do more value add and also more enjoyable tasks that aren't just manual repetitive tasks. However, automation is more like optimization. It'll make you faster, but if that same employee has to go through the same process, if the behaviors and the leadership and the way we work doesn't change, fundamentally, we're not going to have a radically different experience. That was a bit Lockheed Martin. I want to shift gears here for a few minutes just to talk about how you can have a successful career. I mentioned previously that I went from a flight test engineer to doing integration, which was electrical engineering that I'm not trained in, to being program management and other field that I wasn't trained in, to digital transformation, and now I'm finishing a 60-page paper on the COVID-19 playbook response. None of those things I've been trained in, but what I did learn at University of Florida in my engineering career was to always be learning, to always have an adaptive mindset, because it's not just what you learn and then you apply and repeat, is you're always responding and reacting to it. The problems we face today and the challenges that any company and corporation face in this global, specifically now very complex time frame, aren't simple problems. There aren't something that you can mathematically just add up the answer to and get. They're very cross-functional or interdisciplinary. I took this little snippet here from the college's website about the new engineer, because I think it embodies it perfectly, that it's not just the technical excellence which you have to have. It's the leadership, it's innovation, and it's that cross-functional or interdisciplinary approach that focuses on solving the problem for the person or for the customer. So throughout your whole career, I really want to emphasize, think about how you can always be learning, and how you're adapting to something. The problems you solved in the past will not be the problems you solve in the future, and the way you solve them will change faster than you can imagine from personal experience. And a couple things about talking to the different hiring managers that I've worked with, vice presidents, directors, managers, the entire chain. These are just a couple things that they like to highlight, and these aren't hard to do, but it's very surprising how few students do them. So I want to leave you with these real quick, is that an average application at Lockheed Martin can get easily 300 plus applications to it, and that within days, if not more than that. Sometimes it's difficult to process all those. We have a process for it, but the ones that have a tailored resume that says, hey, this is why I can do this job, and above and beyond that, I want to say this tailored cover letter that says, hey, I looked up Lockheed Martin. I'm really excited about the aeronautics division and the F-35. It seems like really cool stuff, and I really feel like I can be part of that and help deliver to the customer. That takes you a step above. I mean, it already says that you're invested time into possibly getting this job. So it makes it seem like a more valuable investment for us to take that into consideration going forward. Regardless of what company you look at, we have our core values and our mission. But if you're going to work for someone, they're going to provide you a paycheck and the time to train you and bring them into that culture and family. Understand and care about their mission. You should at least know that. You can go above and beyond and listen to an earnings call, just so they talk about what's important there. But on any website, you'll know the mission and the values. And the last thing, this is just so critically important. If your resume, your application, or cover letter has typos, we assume that's your best work. So if that's your best work, and I'm going to get your average work most of the time, I'm not going to want to go down a step from that if your best work has typos. Understand those time crunches. I remember I applied to 119 internships this summer that I got my Lockheed Martin one. I didn't get a phone call until the end of the summer, and then I got 3 phone calls that day after I accepted it. So the timing was stressful, but it worked out great. But I mean, pay attention to detail, because these are little things that you can be fully qualified for, and you just get dismissed because it doesn't seem like you care. And if you don't care, why should the company invest in you? Going to the bottom right, send a thank you letter or email. Thank you email is easy. It means a lot to the interviewer and the recruiting team when they get it. And again, you're surprised how few people do it. If you have a chance to write a personal thank you letter, maybe if not in COVID-19, but if you're even already working at a company in person, I mean, that is a powerful thing. And we've had experiences where we remember people for years afterward just because they wrote a hand thank you letter. Write it if it's genuine. Don't write it if it's not. But if you have something that you really appreciate someone for, send them an email, maybe write them a letter. These little things gets that human aspect of it, that it's not just a technical problem, but it's dealing with people. Gonna run through these last few things before we change off here. In your career, ask questions early and often. When you start something new, that's the best time to ask questions. 6 months in, asking how does the homepage work is probably not a valid question. In the first week, it is. Don't be shy on your manager's calendar, but realize that time is valuable. So anything that you're asking for someone's help with, you realize they're taking time out of their day. They're getting more behind on their tasks and actions to help you out with. So if you're going to ask for some time, be prepared. Have some questions. Have a specific thing you want them to ask. Don't be like, hey, please mentor me. I'll be like, hey, please be prepared next time. And then we'll reschedule, because as much as I love mentoring and helping folks out, I was working until 4:30 in the morning today on a critical project. So I really value my time, and I really value time with my wife. So one thing that I've seen burn early career folks is that they say, I'm going to get mentorship. I want to talk to people. They show up and expect to be handed something. Have a little bit of background. You can ask them, what do you think a good topic is? But do it before the meeting so you can use that time valuably. Last point here, this was told to me by some recruiters when I was at the University of Florida, and it's stuck with me since then, and I've seen it be successful. Academic excellence. Yeah, you need to be able to take your classes and do your job. Organizational involvement. That translates, can you work on a team? If you can get great grades in class, but you can't work with people, it won't functionally be helpful in a career. And professional experience, whether this is an internship, a job, research, or one thing that I love, being on a design team at the University of Florida, that shows that you can actually deliver on a product. Speaking of getting a job here, I just want to show this quote from our CEO, and our specific response in COVID-19 is not only to not lay off any employees or furlough employees, It's only to maintain, but we're actively hiring. In the last couple of weeks, 1,000 new people, and we're advertising over 5,000 positions. Internships specifically, we had over 2,000 committed internships this summer, and Lockheed Martin has not rescinded a single one of those. We've modified about 1,000 of them to go virtual, and a couple of hundred to be modified on site with the safety precautions that we have. So Lockheed Martin is looking for talented individuals like the ones at the University of Florida. And I want to pass it off to Janet now to talk a little bit more about our recruiting and a little bit of her background. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. Several of you may have already met me over the course of the last month or so, because I have been doing a number of webinars with students specifically from the University of Florida. So as Bruce indicated, I'm Janet Bastel, and I'm a University Relations Manager with Lockheed Martin. I've only been with Lockheed Martin about 1.5 years. Prior to that, I do have a great deal of experience in the recruiting field, 16 years specifically in university relations, which obviously I love doing. So my background of study is from Michigan State University, with a dual degree in social science and political science, specifically with an emphasis of wanting to get into HR work. Probably one of the reasons that Lockheed Martin was interested in me was the fact that I am an HR professional, a leader. I'm considered an influencer. I'm a talent magnet, which is a good thing for you all. And I'm also work as a consultant in regards to work that I did previously, and I continue to do today. As Eric mentioned, we have 2,000 interns working for us this summer. And we are so excited to say that we have not rescinded one offer. Yes, we do have a variety of students who are working for us in a facility, because as a conversation I was having with somebody the other day, you can't take an airplane or a helicopter home with you. But there is a lot of work that is being done remotely, and a lot of work that is being done differently today, and it will continue to grow into different arenas throughout your career. So where you start, and I love Eric's background, because where he started, he never thought the job that he is doing today for Lockheed Martin is something that he would be doing when he first started. And probably the next job where he grows his career to will be totally different also. How we are doing recruiting right now is, I can tell you, is I am excited at the opportunity to get back on campus in the fall, as I know that all of you are. However, what happens if we can't get back on campus? Well, I'm in the process of putting together a number of virtual events along with the rest of my team, because we will continue to hire. Even now, especially if there's some graduates on the phone that you know, for whatever reason, you don't have an opportunity, is continue to look at jobs that are being posted, because even though our traditional time for cutoff of hiring college grads ended about a month ago, is because we are getting new projects and there's new opportunities coming available, is keep looking at the job postings. At this point, you probably won't find any opportunities for internships for the summer of 2020, but we're already starting to look for interns for 2021. So again, lots of great things happening. And even though it is my preference to be back on campus in the fall, the reality is that we will do a variety of opportunities that are going to be in the virtual environment. So you want to keep in touch with us about what we're doing. I invite any of you to join me on LinkedIn, become one of my followers, as a great way for me to be able to connect with you. Also, we've shared some information. Jeremy and Michael, I think, gave you information about a link for you to register to, so that we know that you were here today. You took the time out of your schedule to get to know more about Lockheed Martin. So again, we want to, make sure that we are keeping in touch with you too. In just a few minutes, Bruce is going to open the field, and we will answer questions for you about opportunities, or any questions that you have about Eric, future recruiting, or Lockheed Martin overall. So Bruce, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Janet, and thank you, Eric. We already have a couple of questions that have come in. I noticed, and I think in both of y'all's talk, you said the student that does a little bit above and beyond stands out and is more likely to get a second look. We had a question from Aiden. Is it possible to get a job at Lockheed Martin without an internship?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because everybody that we hire is, into an internship doesn't have the necessary, they may not have the desire to stay on, but we hire, as Eric indicated, about 2,000 interns during the summer. We're going to hire about 3,000 additional early career people into specific college job postings, but there's always other opportunities that are being posted. So just because you didn't get an internship with us does not mean that you cannot come to work for us.
Okay, thank you. A second question, for students that are in grad school, what's the advice for somebody that's going on for a master's or a PhD to find a job at Lockheed Martin?
We hire lots of grad students. PhD is, we hire some, but it is not the area that I would say that I personally work within. But we do get a lot of students that are coming out with their masters. And in fact, for some of you that are in your undergrad, what I would say is if you're coming to work for Lockheed Martin, wait till you come to work for us, then go back to school and get your master's, because we have an awesome tuition reimbursement program that as soon as you are hired as a full-time associate, you are already eligible for tuition reimbursement. That's
All
one
right.
of our great benefits.
Thank you. I noticed that Eric went back and got a degree in California where he was stationed or working in California. So that must have been a part of that program.
Completely. It's an amazing benefit. We highly encourage it. And I got my entire master's without paying basically a single dime through Lockheed Martin. And it's just an amazing benefit to have.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we have some students that go into our master's program and then they get a job halfway through their program and then they can finish it out with distance learning. And I assume that would work well as well.
Absolutely.
Have another question. Can international students find employment at Lockheed Martin?
To be honest, the majority of the positions that we have available will require that you are a US citizen, and a lot of that has to do with the fact of the clearance process. There are minimal positions available for international students, and all I can say is that's not something that our team recruits for. But if you look at jobs that are posted through the website, it will tell you if the job does require that you be a US citizen or not.
Okay. And Lockheed, it's a worldwide company, right? So
Yes.
you do have remote facilities.
So any of the international facilities, again, we in the US don't recruit for those positions. So they need to look at where that country may be. Like Canada has their own recruiting team along with each international facility.
Oh, that's good information. So if it's not on the US website, they can go and look at the other countries. They have their own separate
Yes.
process. Okay, that's
Yes.
good. Another question, one of the hot topics right now at UF is machine learning and artificial intelligence. Is Lockheed Martin interested in students that have experience in those areas?
Oh, yes, I am very excited about that question. We are growing that field: data science, data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I can go on for a little while on this. The short answer is yes.
Can you tell me he's excited about it? Yes.
The things we can do with it are amazing. We're applying it to how we improve our employees' lives. We're applying it to how we design, how we deliver for our customer. Not asking them to change your major, but if you're interested in that, we would love to have you.
All right, great. I think that's an enthusiastic yes. I have a question from Lauren for Eric. And first off, she said, thank you for your time today. What led you to get a master's degree while working, and how has it affected your career?
All right, great question, Lauren. Thanks. Happy to have some time here today. Um, I mentioned earlier that one of the things about tips for a successful career was always be learning. That could be formal education like a master's, that could be taking advantage. Lockheed has hundreds and hundreds of growth courses for career advancement, whether it's just about learning how to use a specific tool, or I did something on close to Six Sigma, a lean process optimization. Um, so I kind of planned out my career a little bit, and not to have something to do, but to have a goal to look for. And I said, hey, I always want to be learning. So my first year, I was like, I'm gonna take some of these courses, I'll get some mentorship. I said, you know what, I really want to get to the next level of education. And one thing that honestly inspired me as into why, uh, a lot of my colleagues had it. Because of Lockheed's great tuition reimbursement program, it's just something that we get very excited about doing. I personally have a passion for being in the classroom. My end state goal is to like be partially retired and like just be on like campus all day and like learning and teaching, but that's a little ways out. How it affected my career, two very specific ways that I'll tell you. One, it gives you that advanced technical knowledge that, I mean, you're talking about working at Lockheed Martin is working with some of the smartest people in the country and in the world. And just having that advanced technical knowledge brings you to be a little more competitive and to be able to add some more value with that. And the second thing, and very explicit here, open, is that it counts towards experience in your career. So many job postings have expected ranges of time you expected to be in a role before you qualify. I mean, you can't necessarily be the senior vice president day one, no matter how bright you are. There's some experience things. So it shows that your investment in your education, Lockheed values it enough that they said, we think that's equivalent of you spending time in the professional workforce, 2 years for master's, generally speaking, depending on your role. So it actually provided me some early advancement careers because I qualified for higher positions at a younger or quicker age. So one, keeps you competitive. I love doing it. And two, actually has tangible impacts into your career progression.
All right, thank you. I actually have people, they're texting me questions now. This one's actually one from Dr. Abbott, and his question was, how important is written communication?
Oh my goodness, written communication, especially now today, that's what translates from a great idea to an implemented idea. Because if you have a great idea and you can't communicate it to your stakeholders, whether that's your manager, whether that's your customer, whether that's a vice president who has to approve this process, all those processes tend to have some sort of written communication, whether it's a proposal, whether it's a presentation. So you have to have clean, consistent communication. And I'll say personally, that's been something that I've been working on very targetedly the last 4 years of my career. Because I realized that I did it okay, but I didn't do it excellent. And I got some mentorship and coaching within the company. And that has been a next level boost for my career because I was able to communicate written and verbally to my leaders about what the plan was, which provided confidence for them that I knew what I was doing, which then provided more responsibility and opportunities for me.
All right, thanks. Have another question from online, and y'all spend some time at UF, so this question is about undergraduate opportunities, activities that students get involved in on campus. What stands out to y'all in terms of if they're not doing an internship, they're involved on campus somehow? What are avenues that really stand out?
Jenna, I have a lot of personal stories, but I don't know if you want to give your perspectives.
Well, just, and Eric kind of talked about it already, is the different student organizations that are out there, you taking the opportunity to get involved with those, the different teams. I somehow became very connected with Gator Loop. So I know the students were involved with that very, personally. So again, it's taking those opportunities that are available, especially now. If you are not working, the big question is that if you didn't get an internship this summer, everybody knows what's going on in the world. However, it's not about you didn't get the internship, but what are you doing with your time? So by taking the opportunity to get involved with some of the student organizations or the teams there, those are things that are going to help you, even by doing research. So Eric, what do you want to add to that?
I agree with everything you said, Janet. Thinking back to my experience at UF, Um, I was fortunate enough to be part of the freshman leadership engineering group.
Them.
The next year I was a chair. The next year I was executive vice president of that organization. I was involved in AIAA specifically. I was worked across all the Vet Engineering Council organizations. My personal passion, and this is what I advise students, is to seek things out that align with your personal passion, because it doesn't become work. It's fun, and you get all the benefits for it. Was on leadership and organizations and delivering things for students and my colleagues. So I ended up also being part of engineering ambassadors for the College of Engineering, which was an amazing group and a great time. So one thing is pursuing your passions, and two, with that, it's just finding a way to add value and performance excellence. It's one of my favorite core values for Lockheed Martin is performance excellence, because whatever you're doing in any organization, you perform excellence. When an employer sees that, they can see the results, whether it's a bake sale or setting up things for employees in front of Marston Library or the Fries or some sort of study hall. We can very directly say, okay, what if that was a project on the F-35? Or what if that was a design team on Orion? We can see that application. So highly encourage it. And one thing, you'll learn a lot from your colleagues.
All right, thanks. I have another question. It's a very specific question. Are young engineers encouraged to pursue their professional engineer's license at Lockheed Martin, or does it vary from department to department?
In my experience, not as common. So my answer would be varies, but just overall, my specific background is with the aeronautics company and with our corporate headquarters, and we don't see it as much. Many of my colleagues from UF who went into civil engineering and construction, just keeping up with them, those seem to have more frequently and be more frequently rewarded. I do know some folks at my previous company, but it's a smaller percentage, to be honest.
Okay. Here's a question from Daniel. Does Lockheed Martin prefer a particular language? And I'm assuming they mean like programming language.
So it varies from program to program, and a lot of that often is customer requirements. So I don't have a good answer, and if I don't have a good answer, I don't want to make one up and mislead you. We have legacy programs that were started in the 70s, and they continue maintaining the code in Fortran from that. We have new programs that use C++, that use Python. We have data analytics that are using R. There's a wide range. So with the number of programs and different businesses and customers that Lockheed has, I can't give you a definitive, this is the best that we're going to use for one, because it's going to vary. But just having that expertise, and again, always be learning and being adaptive to saying, hey, I know this programming language, I don't know this one, but I have a basis and I can adapt it. That's just going to help you get the opportunity and learn on the job.
Okay.
Besides what Eric mentioned, is one of the things that you can do if you're looking at a specific area that you're very interested in, just go look at some of the job postings that are out there. And if they're looking for, if they have certain requirements for different languages, it'll be posted within there. And even though you may not be eligible for that job right now, at least it gives you an idea of those are opportunities, those are things that that job is going to be looking for in the future.
Okay, that's a good point. So as students, maybe they're a sophomore and they're thinking tech electives, they could go explore job postings for companies they think they might be interested in and sort of pick their brain that way.
Absolutely.
So, okay, good idea. Here's a question from Stephen. He says he's a rising senior in computer engineering. So we have some computer engineers that are stalking our mechanical and aero website. So they're going outside the norm here. What is the best way to stand out of the crowd if we are put in a situation where a traditional career fair is no longer an option? Okay, so we're in this COVID-19 world. We have activities like this, but what are some other ways they can stand out if they can't actually meet you at the career showcase?
So as I already indicated, is we are supplying a link today. So by you registering into our link, it also gives you the opportunity to share your resume with me. Now, I'm not having you just go there to put your stuff in. I'm actually going back and I'm looking at those candidates who took the time to participate in the different activities. So that's going to kind of give you a heads up, because then I can, even this summer, take your information and start putting it into a list of future candidates. So the more times that I have the opportunity to interact with you, the better advantage it gives you. And yes, there will be a lot of things that are moving from in person to online. So making sure that you're staying connected as to what are those different activities that are happening.
All right. So I think a buzzword might be networking. The more networking they can do, the better off they're going to be.
Absolutely.
We have time for a couple more questions, perhaps, if any of the people in the audience want to type in a question. I have one. So I'm thinking, I'm drawing a blank. So
Can I add on to the previous question though, because if you don't mind?
Oh, sure.
About computer engineering students stand out. Definitely, we're in this adjusting to this new normal of COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, computer engineering student, come over Lockheed Martin. We got a lot of stuff you do with you. First of all, but have stand out in the crowd. I mentioned a couple of tips earlier about tailoring your resume, the cover letter. One thing I want to be specific on when tailoring a resume is the job you're applying for at Lockheed Martin generally is going to have basic qualification and desired skills. The way we generally view basic qualifications are that if you cannot do everything on this list, you can't do the job. So if the job says you need to have C++, you need to have an undergraduate technical degree, and you need to be proficient in Word, and you don't say that you can do Word, you might not be considered qualified for a job, just because that's a simple example, use them more detailed. So just make sure that if you're looking for the job, tell us, because the number of applications we get, that you can do the basic qualifications very explicitly, because that reduces any worry in the recruiter, the HR talent organization, or the hiring manager's mind that you can't do the basic functions. It's great if you have all the desired skills, but if, like for a more technical example, if I said I need C++, this is programming with C++, and your resume doesn't say C++, it doesn't matter if you have 20 other programming languages and all this great experience working that program as an intern before. If you can't do a basic qualification, you almost will virtually never be considered for the job, because they put a lot of thought into what they actually need. So that's just one part. The second part I just want to talk to is that one of the really interesting things about those opportunities, we're not there yet, but the corporation is looking at it, is that this COVID-19 experience has shown us that we can do work remotely more than in the past. My wife is a manager at Lockheed Martin, and her team just actually hired intern virtually, and they also just hired a team member based out of San Antonio. Now, we have teleworker at Lockheed Martin previously, but it was generally that you worked on site for a while, and then you switched to a telecommuting facility or arrangement, or you worked in a different role. But in this team, we're becoming more and more open to that. So just think about your opportunities don't need to be, well, I want to live in Orlando, so I'm going to apply to jobs in Orlando, or I want to live in Marietta, or I want to live in Texas. The job posting will tell you where it has to be, but if you're rising senior, if you're junior, if you're sophomore, keep an eye on these opportunities that are going to evolve, and show that your flexibility to be able to do the work remotely and to kind of prove that. And that's going to be really key, not only Lockheed Martin, but honestly, we know the talent pool is going to be opening up immensely once we get to this new normal. So I want you to keep that in mind for any career opportunity you pursue.
All right, thanks. So as students do their homework, and if they're looking at a company, what are the best ways to do homework on the company? What should the students be looking for when they evaluate a company and think about applying?
So the easiest way to start is by looking at their websites. See if what's on the website resonates with what you're looking for. Then the other thing that I think is so important is connecting with people from your university who are working for that organization. Talk to people that have had the job that you're interested in. Talk to people who are coming, who have been on campus. So making those connections with different alumni. You can also do that through LinkedIn. Following people on LinkedIn is very helpful in gathering information. So it's not just about the website, but it really is engaging and talking to different people who work for the organization that you want to go to work for. Eric, what do you
Okay.
want to add to that?
Just briefly, I do the same thing. When I just got my recent job working for a senior vice president in corporate, I went on LinkedIn, I followed her before the interview. I went to the website that had the organization's information and read up about it. And in my feedback from the 2 rounds of vice president and senior vice president interviewed me, they said, we loved how prepared you were. You knew what our mission was. You knew about the article that I shared last week about digital optimization that I mentioned. They're like, we understood if you would do that for an interview, you're gonna do great things for us.
That's great. So as the juniors, as the seniors are graduating and getting jobs, the juniors should pay attention as to where they're going and shoot them an email every once in a while and keep in touch. And
Absolutely.
okay, so that little extra attention goes a long way. That's good. A question from Alexander about internships. If they have to move a long ways, are there funding available to help with housing and that sort of thing, or
Yes, the majority of the jobs that we offer, even for internships, we offer a housing stipend. If for some reason it's not offered, it would say that in the job description, but also that is an important key element and a question that you should be asking at the time that you're doing the interview. But yes, Lockheed Martin does offer housing stipends.
Okay, great. So sort of a more technical question from Aiden. Finite elements method, or FEA or FEM, is that still a really popular methodology? Or does Lockheed Martin use commercial software? Do they write their own, or are there other software packages that are out there they should maybe try to get familiar with?
So I'll take a shot at that one. Unfortunately, answer is always it varies by program. And I can't go into too many detailed specifics when we do on program because that crosses into proprietary and competitive information. But in my previous job as a program manager, I was exchanging emails with the loads and dynamics groups on a weekly basis about air vehicle FEM analysis that was due for a part we were trying to add. So definitely methodology we use, the tool sets and the suites we are evaluating on a regular basis, even as part of our digital transformation that I mentioned earlier, try to get to the latest and greatest tools. But sometimes the customer requirements will force us to one tool or the other. And it's a key, kind of we keep talking about, it's about being adaptable and able to learn. Those things will keep you happily employed your whole career. If you understand the methodology, you can learn a tool pretty quickly.
All right, thank you. I think we're just about out of time. I had a quick message from Dr. Banks, who had to log off a moment early, but he said we had 50 participants for this as our first summer seminar series. We're going to be continuing this over the summer. We hope that people that are on the YouTube channel will subscribe to the channel, and we'll be sending out email announcements for future seminars. But we wanted to thank Eric and Janet for being here available to us, and we're looking forward to helping you as best we can with your recruiting efforts, and we hope that our students will reach out to you as well. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Thanks. This is, I think, like you mentioned, this challenge right now, we're starting to learn, there's new ways to communicate. And so we're all sort of learning. There's ways for us to stay connected that we weren't even, they were here, we just weren't utilizing them. So I think that's it then. So
Thanks.
so long, goodbye.